Welcome to day 9. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're just going to practice drawing more complex shapes, and I just want to show you some of the basic measurements that go into that before we go out and draw some more things. So I start by finding the height where I want it on the page. Just put a simple mark, a plumb line down to keep things straight up and down, and then I'm looking for the middle, and I'm looking for a landmark where the stem of the wine glass meets the bowl of the wine glass. So the stem starts a little more than halfway down, and the middle is just a little bit up from that. So I'm looking for that measurement, and you measure by holding your pencil parallel in front of you in a straight line and using your thumb to mark off the points that you're looking for. Okay, so and then I just double check that measurement on my paper. Kind of see what I'm looking for there. Okay, so I've established my halfway point, and then I'm going to use that information to figure out the width of the cup portion of the wine glass. So I look how many times the width of the top of the wine glass fits into that top flute portion of it. And it fits about 2 times pretty evenly, so that makes it easy. So I know that the width is about half of the height of that, so about a quarter of the whole length of it. So now I have found another landmark, and I just keep putting marks where I find these landmarks. And I'll double check to make sure that that is evenly halfway on the line. It's so easy to do these kinds of things and then have them kind of feeling like they're tipping over or something. So you just want to kind of get that established. And then you keep everything with as many boxes and square shapes as you can. The next measurement I'm going to look for is how wide the ellipse on the top is, the mouth of that champagne flute there. And so I just check and I see how many times that goes into the width. And it's about a quarter of the width. And that will be my first ellipse. And then I just bring lines straight down. We'll add the curves once we figure out the exact points where they begin to curve in, and then we'll put those points on either side and do straight lines down so that because those, again, it's just almost impossible to estimate a curve accurately, and so many times you get one curve and then the other curve is not quite the same. And so if you use a lot of angles and you get those points established of exactly how far up a curve is going and where it ends, and it's so much easier. Okay, so rechecking all of those measurements, and then when you can mark where the width of the stem there. I got it a little wide with my first marks, so I'm adjusting that. And adjust as you go. I mean, it's 100% fine to make errors, and the point of measuring is just that we see them before we fully commit to that, right? So, make your errors in your drawing stage, and then throughout your work, whether it's painting or drawing, just keep checking as you go along, and never be afraid to move an error. So you see that how I haven't done the swooped edges at all yet. I'm still working in straight lines just so that I can get the curves to be accurate and to be symmetrical. Even if they're not exactly accurate, at least if they're symmetrical, you're way ahead of the game there, and it'll look right, if that makes sense. Okay, so now I'm going to look for, figure out how high up the stem that bottom ellipse comes, right? The tendency is to draw the ellipse under the stem, but the reality is we're seeing the stem go into that bottom ellipse, and so we have to get that ellipse around it, right? So I'm building once again, just another box for the stem to sit in, and once I find how far out, now I'm looking for how far past the edges, let's see, that extends. So the base is just a little wider than the top flute part. So I'm just making little marks there, and now I've got a box. And once you get to this point, it's kind of easy to just throw on the ellipses and throw on some curves, and you have a pretty good, accurate finished drawing. So and this is where you get to the fun part. At least I think this is the fun part, start throwing on those curves and they just kind of have that, that nice, somewhat effortless feeling. When I draw the lines, the initial lines, I like to do what, they call drawing through. And that's where you're just drawing, extending perspective and measurement lines just a little beyond what you're seeing. And it kind of, it's just kind of a fun thing to play with. It's used a lot in design, and I enjoyed that when I took some design drawing classes. Let's see. So yeah, and then from there, once you have all that established, you can start adding in the details. We're not worrying about the light and shadow. If you're on this, this is just basically a drawing more complex shapes lesson before we move on to other things. Now that we've tackled so many shapes, here's how you do a more complex one. If we were going to paint this or render this in charcoal or pencil, when you do glass, you kind of just squint your eyes and you draw through it and you get the values through it. And then you hit it with some highlights and some dark accents. And that really gives you the illusion of glass and the illusion that you're seeing through it, which is just really, really fun. I love, just getting to experiment with different textures and surfaces and finishes and whatever else. And there are just absolute masters of, especially if you look back and I think back at some of the Dutch paintings or, those historical ones. I mean, they use texture in the most incredible way, whether things were fluffy or shiny or furry or, it's just incredible. So I love that. There's so much to learn about that. And they had such a virtuosity of just putting down the right mark at the right place to make it look like a specific texture. So here you go. It's just a simple way to get a more complex object on the page. And use your accents, your dark and light accents to kind of bring that, like for instance, if you want to bring an edge of ellipse forward, just hit that with a little bit darker accent, right? So think about the way you're making your marks and if it's closer, add it a little more dark, and if it's further, you can have it be fade around a little bit. You can play with some lost edge marks where you're not really defining the edge, you're defining part of the edge and letting the brain, the viewer's brain do a little of the work, which is always fun. Then they're engaging in the process of drawing with you. You're giving them some information and then you finish it together. So, have fun. I'm going to put the wine glass up there for 10, or the champagne flute up there for 10 minutes. And, measuring can be challenging. Hopefully having it on the screen makes it a little bit easier so that you can, just practice that measuring technique. I'll try to do a separate video just on how to measure with your pencil and your thumb the way I was doing. It's simple because you can, since it's based on proportion instead of like a site size measurement, which bases on transferring the exact size of what you were seeing to your page, we're transferring things proportionally. So what you're really doing with this kind of measurement is just comparing proportions to each other. So have fun, put on some good music, get comfortable, grab your paper and pencil. I'll have the wine glass drawing or the champagne flute up there for 10 minutes. And thank you so much for joining me. Send me pictures, send me questions. Have a great rest of your day. Okay, this wraps up today's drawing session. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.